Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous. Okay, we got another alert here. Alert number 3 for flashpoints to World War III. Headlines are focused on the Muslim refugee crisis in Europe, but keep your eyes peeled on the South China Sea. It's a body of water 1.351 million square miles in size. It's claimed by 9 different countries: Brunei, Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan, Vietnam, Japan, North Korea, South Korea, and the big one, China. And the South China Sea is vital to the global economy, your economy, my economy. Why? 30% of the world's trade flows through the South China Sea. Yes, 30% of the world's trade. But someone is claiming the South China Sea lock, stock, and barrel, all 1.351 million square miles of it. It's China. China has built 7 artificial islands in the South China Sea. Why? To establish land claims and to position military equipment and airfields. China has flooded the South China Sea with hundreds or even thousands of fishing boats and Coast Guard ships that some experts claim are actually military vessels under civilian cover. Most important, the Chinese have declared unequivocally that the South China Sea belongs to one nation and one nation only. You can guess who that nation is. China. Always has belonged to China, say the Chinese. Always will belong to China. This is where Barack Obama's pivot to Asia comes in. You remember that pivot. For a long time, it looked like all talk and no action. But not anymore. While the world watches the civil war in Syria, we Americans have been asserting ourselves in the South China Sea. And we've been risking serious confrontation with the Chinese military confrontation. On October 27th, our guided missile destroyer, the USS Lassen, sailed within 12 miles of the South China Sea's, let's push a button here, Spratly Islands. China responded by deploying fighter jets to Woody Island in the South China Sea and by conducting aerial and naval operations over southern China. And reportedly, the Chinese also responded by shadowing the U.S. aircraft carrier, the Ronald Reagan, near Japan with an attack submarine. But we didn't back down. Our Secretary of Defense, Ashton B. Carter, popped up in the buffer zone that separates North Korea from South Korea, affirming our commitment to defend South Korea from what Ash Carter called a, quote, notoriously unpredictable North Korea. A North Korea that just so happens to be a close ally of, guess who? China. Then Carter did a photo op on the aircraft carrier Theodore Roosevelt somewhere in the South China Sea. He mentioned Roosevelt's big stick. He climbed into the belly of a warplane. He had his picture taken while the plane was in midair with the cargo door to Carter's left dangerously, wide open, so the camera could catch the full expanse of the aircraft carrier beneath. The Chinese countered by throwing a monkey wrench into the annual meeting of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. China prevented ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, from issuing a closing statement. Why? Because the closing statement would have referred to the South China Sea. And the Chinese reasserted their dominance in Asia with a symbolic meeting between the prime ministers of China, Japan, and South Korea, 2 of our allies, that was a meeting in which China, South Korea, and Japan were all very nice to each other and all swore to advance trade and peace together as a trio. Returning to the South China Sea, China's Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Chunying made what sounded like a diplomatic statement to journalists from all over the world. Quote, China respects the freedom of navigation and has no objection to normal, legitimate navigation freedom in real international shipping lanes. That was the crucial word, international. But she added this, China is opposed to actions that challenge or threaten other countries' sovereignty under the pretense of freedom of navigation. Note that word, sovereignty. 30% of the world's trade may flow through the sea lanes of the South China Sea, but China is saying that it owns the whole thing, the whole massive body of water, all 1.351 million square miles of it. Do we really have to face off with China over this body of water? You bet. Says Zhang Biaohui, a political scientist at Lingnan University in Hong Kong, about the South China Sea, quote, great powers' actions can only be restrained by the balancing efforts of other great powers. Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Thailand are not strong enough militarily to solve this problem. These nations have some of the strongest economies in the world, but they depend on America to solve the problem of China's claims to the South China Sea for them. And after the red line in Syria that we failed to enforce, we have to show that we can be taken seriously somewhere. But face-offs are dangerous. So when you scope the world, looking for flashpoints for World War III, keep your eyes peeled. Keep them peeled on the South China Sea. This is Howard the Humongous speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make, or want to know why, ask how. And now for the sneaky, sleazy, slimy, seditious, impossible to find, I think I've almost got it, off button.